So the meta in Honkai Star Rail has been changing, and it's been doing it for a little while now. For example, we're in the middle of some follow-up type of synergetic meta right now, with characters like Robin coming out. We just had Aventurine, we had Ratio in patch 1.6, we had Clara in 1.0, etc., etc. We had Topaz in 1.4. The meta is clearly changing and shifting towards what characters are being released right now. Now, sure, you can make the argument that that sort of always happens with characters, but this is a pretty specific sort of niche meta with the follow-up setups, and we're going to be getting some more in the future too, so let's talk about it. So when I say that we're also going to be getting more characters, I'm not just talking about follow-up characters here, okay? I'm talking about break effect characters as well. And we're also going to be getting some action advance forward type of synergies as well. So those three things, follow-up, break effect, and the action advance forward type of meta is where things are going to be generally centralized over the next couple of months or so. We've already seen some action advance forward shifts with the introduction of a character like Sparkle, for example, but we're also going to be seeing this built into the kit of Sam, aka Firefly, as well, which is a nice thing because that doesn't require to have two characters on the field in order to make this happen for your main DPS. She's going to be able to do it herself. Now, of course, she might also benefit from having other characters that can give her that as well. It's usually a bit of a hint if it's built into their kit. They'd usually benefit from having a support character that surrounds around that same type of concept as well. So with the Sam Firefly situation, for example, break effect characters, any character that can support that type of thing, and any character that can give you, let's say, maybe speed or another action advance forward, such as Sparkle, maybe even Bronya, will be very, very good for that type of a character. Now, obviously, action advance forward is not quite the same thing as like break effect or follow-up attacks, for example. It's kind of like its own thing because it exists in a way that it can help pretty much any team setup. You know, Bronya, for example, is a really great character that works on many teams, and Sparkle is an incredibly good character that, as you may be aware, has really amazing buffs, so you don't have to necessarily be centered around follow-up or break effect to benefit from something like action advance forward. So the action advance forward setups and the characters that can synergize with that, that's basically going to be good for pretty much any team that could ever possibly exist. So the follow-up meta is sort of its own thing, and so is the break effect meta. And although we are going to be getting some action advance forward synergy, like I said, they're going to be able to exist outside of the niche metas as well. So as a result, I mostly want to focus on the follow-up meta and the break effect meta. Just be aware that the action advance forward stuff will exist amongst these things as well. Obviously, earlier I mentioned the follow-up characters we already have in the game, but I wanted to sort of detail them out a little bit more right now. For example, Aventurine is actually the first true synergetic sustainability character for the follow-up meta. Obviously, he works well on other teams as well, but he has the first true follow-up synergetic capabilities as a sustainability character. We see the same thing going on with Robin. She's the first ever true support character for the follow-up meta. Again, she's great on other teams as well, but I'm just pointing out the synergies here. And with Topaz, he's the only sub-DPS character we have right now for the follow-up meta, and with Dr. Ratio, who's a character we all got for free, by the way, and can be run as a hyper carry, but he's an incredibly strong follow-up main DPS character. We have a similar situation with Clara, who's been around since 1.0, somewhat hard to acquire unless you got lucky, but you know, I have her at E2, so I mean, what does that say, right? So we have a lot of characters now, and we can technically build, like, you know, a friend of mine, Jello Impact, actually called it, you know, the Exodia sort of team, where the entire team is centralized a specific type of thing, and they're very, very powerful and synergetic with each other as a result. We see this finally happening, a true dream team for the follow-up meta. And I don't want to let too much slip or anything like that, so don't worry, I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but Jade is going to end up also being a very, very powerful follow-up synergetic character as well, and may end up power creeping Topaz on certain team compositions as the next sub-DPS character. Again, that's the next sub-DPS character for the follow-up meta. And as far as break effect is concerned, we actually recently filled out the Dream Team sort of setup, or at least a Exodia-style Dream Team setup already, if you think about it. We have Gallagher. Yeah, sure, he's a 4-star character, but he is the synergetic sustainability character for the break effect meta as it stands right now until a 5-star release is for that. And he is actually really darn good, super underrated, especially when you consider his niche setups, which the Break Effect meta is one of his niche setups. We have Ron May, who is arguably the best character in the entire game because she has such a good spread for good team compositions, and she's just so universal and comfy to be able to use. It's hard to say that even Sparkle could be able to stand up to her, but make your, say what you will. Maybe it's Sparkle, maybe it's Ron May. That's not really what the video is about because Break Effect is more OP with Ron May on the team. You might be wondering to yourself who the other support could be. Well, by the time this video goes out, we should hopefully have that other support character in the game. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I'm not going to say the name just in case y'all haven't gone to that point yet, but for you people in the know, you know what I'm talking about, baby. And if you don't, trust me, you'll be finding out shortly. And as far as a main DPS character goes, well, we have actually kind of a lot of options. You have the option to build a main DPS character for Break Effect as it stands right now without it necessarily having to be super duper OP for Break Effect. Luca is an incredibly underrated character that comes to mind for this type of meta. We're going to be getting Boot Hill as well, who's going to be a super god tier for the Break Effect meta. And we're also going to be getting Sam, Firefly, as a really, really strong main DPS character in general. But for the Break Effect meta, oh my god, is the meta going to make a shift when she comes out? Jesus Christ. I know a lot of people out there haven't necessarily built into the Break Effect teams, the Break Effect meta, but trust me, all you Firefly Sims out there are going to make a serious shift. And if you haven't done it by the time she comes out, you're definitely going to do it when she does, because she's going to be absolutely cracked. I'll put a video in the description below if you guys are interested in finding out a little bit about that. Again, I'm not trying to deep dive or, spoil anything for anybody. That's not what this is about. That's not what my content is about. I just want to kind of prepare you guys a little bit for what mindset you should be kind of having or what team builds you might be wanting to consider for the meta going forward. And since I did mention Action Advance Forward earlier, I guess we'll just go over it briefly right now. Robin is going to be god tier for Action Advance Forward because she does it for your entire team, which is correct. And yeah, we have Sparkle, who has a way better buff, but it only lands on one of your characters, which, for many of you who run Hyper Carry, that's going to be totally fine. Nothing to really worry about with that. And obviously, we have the 1.0 beauty in the form of Baranya, also giving Action Advance Forward. And you also, don't forget about Dance, 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 the light cone that is super god tier, and the more copies of that you get, the better. Probably one of the most sought after light cones in the entire game. And it's a 4-star light cone, but it's cracked. And you can put it on more than one of your supports. So it's super duper busted. Love that light cone. Can't say enough good things about it. But some Action Advance Forward is starting to be thrown into characters' kit in order to be able to give them Action Advance Forward themselves. And we'll be seeing this with Sam and Firefly. And it's going to be super duper strong on them. It's kind of like a necessity for them to have it in their kit if you know what their kit's kind of really doing. You know what I mean? It's a bit complicated. I'm not going to deep dive that type of stuff right now. It's too early to theory craft that type of stuff at this moment in time. Again, just trying to get you guys prepared about what's coming in the future, just to let you guys know what the meta is sort of doing right now and where these shifts are sort of occurring and what they're leaning into. And these three things, follow-up attack, Action Advance Forward, and Break Effect, these are the three things we're going to be seeing a lot of right now. And as far as building a full team around that type of style of thing, you really are looking at follow-up and you're really looking at Break Effect. The fact that we're getting a lot of Action Advance Forward right now is not necessarily something you could build the whole team around. It's something that you pretty much always want to put into your team setup if you can, because speed or Action Advance Forward are typically the strongest things in the entire game. The faster you go, the more actions you have. That's basically the nature of the game. The faster you do things, the more powerful it is. Even if you take a little bit of a damage loss, if you get to attack, let's say 2 times, you know what I mean, versus 1 time, doesn't matter how powerful you were, man. You get to attack twice, or that's kind of cracked. And the more you are able to do this through many different synergies, whether it's built into the character's kit itself, or whether a character is doing it, or whether several characters on your team are doing it, that's going to be really, really strong. I mean, we've all seen how powerful zero cycling is. The way we do this is with things like Action Advance Forward or super high speed and synergy. But don't feel like you have to have every single one of these characters in order to participate in this type of a meta. For example, Dr. Ratio isn't a super duper powerful character, and he doesn't really necessarily need anybody else but him to be the follow-up character on the team. He's incredibly strong on a hyper carry team that has enough defense down in order to quickly get up his buff so that he can give himself enough crit rate to really properly compete in combat. He's incredibly strong, and again, doesn't necessarily need other follow-up synergy to be powerful. So just keep that in mind. You can participate in these metas without having literally the full Exodia or the full Dream Team in order to be able to do this. But for those interested in playing that type of style, obviously there are some really, really optimal ways to do that, and typically the more synergy you have within that type of meta, typically the better the team performs. And we have seen that with the follow-up meta, for example, since we've had a little bit more of that. Then we have the break effect meta that will be coming and getting stronger as more characters come out for it. But looking at the follow-up teams, gosh, yeah, the most powerful versions of those teams are the ones that have the follow-up synergies within them. Like, for example, running Topaz and Ratio together, their synergies are so strong, their kits work really, really well with each other, and it was designed for that to be the case. So if you are curious about running that and you do really, really enjoy the meta or that type of thing, just consider some of these characters. But again, please, this section was to reiterate to you guys, you do not need to pull all of these characters to participate in this meta. Just keep that in mind, okay? So don't feel bad if you're a couple of fries short of a Happy Meal, alright? You're still going to be able to compete even if you don't have all of these characters. Example, Robin is going to be an incredibly great pickup for the follow-up meta or for Action Advance Forward. And you're going to see a character like Firefly Sam be such a strong character that you don't need to have all of these other break effect characters to make it work. You could run Hyper Carry Firefly and be totally fine, all right? So if you want to see some of the value that I see coming in the near future, Robin, very, very strong, very, very powerful. She's kind of like a jack of all trades. She kind of does it all. And with Firefly, she's, in my opinion, just a prediction, probably going to be the second best DPS character in the game. And that's all I'll really say about that. Boot Hill, by the way, very, very underrated character right now. Boot Hill's going to be cracked. If you don't think Boot Hill's going to be cracked, you're kind of missing out on something. Now, but I do feel like out of the characters I kind of mentioned that are coming in the near future, the most value I see is likely going to be coming out of, you know, whether it's Jade, Boot Hill, Robin, or Sam, Firefly. I feel like Firefly Sam and Robin will be the 2 out of the 4 characters that I mentioned in this video that are sort of newer that will have the most value to them. Just my opinion, but I think a lot of people that are in the know share that same sentiment. Anyways, if you found any of this helpful or informative in any way, shape, or form, consider leaving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.